You have exactly 3 seconds to like and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, I'll appear in your dreams tonight. To ask for a donation for that cup of coffee, link below.
This is Mark Zuckerberg, considered the most dangerous person in the world. One day in April 20, the most dangerous person in the world received a shock. Apple released a feature called App Tracking Transparency. Accordingly, applications will have to ask users for permission before accessing the random advertising identifier on the iPhone. So now Facebook cannot easily access user personal data like before. It soon caused Facebook to lose billions of dollars, and Zuckerberg will be less dangerous. That is the kind of power that Apple has had since the launch of the first iPhone. In 1997, Steve Jobs returned to save an Apple that was on the brink of bankruptcy. After that, Jobs led the company to a spectacular recovery. First with the launch of the iPod in 2001. After that, iPod continuously achieved huge successes. But the problem also starts from this point. Millions of Americans already have cell phones to make calls, but now have to carry a music player. In 2003, consumers went crazy for the Palm Trio 600, a product that combined a phone and PDA. In the context that phones are about to support 3G and Wi-Fi, memory costs are decreasing and digital music services are appearing more and more. The demand for an all-one phone is huge. Jobs understood that such devices would pose a direct threat to the iPod, and Apple is starting to depend on the iPod. Therefore, they will have to venture into the mobile phone market. But carriers like Singular or AT&T were the ones shaping mobile phones at that time. They have full authority to decide which features are allowed on the phone. Neither BlackBerry nor Nokia can have a full web browser. Instead, they are considered something for users to sign a subscription contract with the network operator. Steve Jobs was not so resigned. In the summer of 2000, Apple cooperated with Motorola to develop a phone called OKR. Apple will bring iTunes to OKR. But OKR soon ran into problems. In September, Jobs said OKR was pod shuffle on your phone. Jobs knew he was holding a failed product on his hands. Can't download music on its own, and can only store 100 songs. Motorola and Apple went their separate ways. However, OKR helped Steve Jobs realize that Apple needed to create its own phone. Jobs then went to Stan Sigman, CEO, to declare Apple could create a revolutionary phone. Sigman believes in that. In 2005, profits from voice calling and SMS services were decreasing due to price-cutting races. Sigman understood that Singular needed to find a competitive advantage with an exclusive phone that everyone coveted. Such a phone can direct users to switch to browsing the web instead of making calls. It can help Singular increase sales from internet fees. The problem is, for many years, carriers like Singular or Verizon have held the right to sell content to users, from ringtones to Java applications. If Apple is given the right to develop its own mobile operating system, content revenue will fall into the pockets of carriers. But Sigman had no better choice. The first iPhone was released in January 2007. Although the first iPhone was still full of flaws, no 3G, no video recording, not even copy and paste. However, It has completely changed the traditional telecommunications model. Singular now merged with AT&T and exclusively sold the first iPhone. All of their competitors now have to rush to find a touch phone that can compete directly with the iPhone. Verizon, which had previously rejected Jobs' offer for the iPhone, now frantically demanded that BlackBerry immediately have an iPhone killer. So BlackBerry Storm was born. And the storm also fell on both BlackBerry and Verizon. Storm's return rate is 100%. Verizon, the exclusive distributor of Storm, suffered losses of up to 500 million USD. But iPhone's competitors also appeared soon. When the iPhone was launched, Andy Rubin and Google completely killed the Android HTC Sooner project, which was originally intended to compete with BlackBerry. Instead, the project was switched to Android development on the HTC Dream to compete with the iPhone. Then, in 2019, Verizon took revenge thanks to the Motorola Doride 1 model, which had sales of 1.05 million just 74 days on shelf. This, along with the subsequent Samsung Galaxy S phones, is due in no small part to the fact that carriers are looking for ways to destroy AT&T's position. This has created momentum for Android and Apple phone manufacturers to continuously race in terms of features and configuration. And so, the iPhone was born in 2007 and removed the bottleneck for the mobile phone manufacturing industry. From here, manufacturers can freely innovate to compete. After hardware comes software. The App Store launched. In just 1 year, the number of app downloads for iPhone has reached 100 million. Mobile applications have now become a goldmine worth billions of dollars, turning application developers into new forces. App Store or Play Store has now become the center of digital life. And telecommunications providers must try to upgrade infrastructure to meet users' data needs. iPhone changed the power of network operators, and also changed the power of many of the world's largest phone companies at that time. Which phone have you used? Samsung, BlackBerry, Nokia, Sony, Huawei, Oppo, Vinsmart or Buffon? Do you remember the last time you saw phones in countless designs? Has the design of phones ever been more boring than it is now? From hundreds of different phone models, now there is just one familiar rectangular model. A few small differences like Samsung did with Fold or Flip are not enough to change that boredom. But if we don't follow this boredom, phone companies may disappear. Nowadays, every time new iPhones appear, it always comes with a lot of criticism, from how expensive it is, not having many upgrades compared to the previous generation. However, it has been criticized since the first days it appeared in the world. At that, no one believed in a phone without a keyboard, when the world then had BlackBerry, Moto Q, Palm Trio and Nokia. Ed Zander, CEO of Motorola at that time, when asked what his plan was to deal with the iPhone, replied, "You have to ask how they can deal with us." Olli-Pekka Kalasvo, CEO of Nokia denied, "I don't think there's anything from Apple that would cause us to change our product strategy, our software, or our business methods." Ed Colligan, CEO of Palm at that time said, "People who only know how to do computers can't do it. I have been learning and struggling for years to know how to make a great phone. People who only know how to do computers can't do it. People who only know how to do computers can't do it." John Rubinstein, former CEO of Palm, even made this comparison, as they're a toaster that can make coffee. There cannot be any such device because it cannot do better than a toaster or a specialized coffee maker. Steve Ballmer, CEO of Microsoft, even smiled brightly. In 2010, when launching Windows Phone 7, Microsoft even held a funeral for the iPhone. But then, Microsoft also woke up, sent Windows Phone to the other side of the world and advised users to return to iOS and Android. Those criticisms and jokes have nurtured iPhone's growth and brought huge profits to Apple. As for Motorola, Nokia or BlackBerry, they have become beautiful memories of someone's youth, or have been reluctantly revived. As for It is continuously a key factor that brings huge profits to Apple. Records are constantly being broken. 1,000, then 3,000. And this upward momentum shows no signs of stopping. With a lot of money comes a lot of power. An iPhone is made up of many small components. Each of those small parts shows how great Apple's power is. They can bring or take away contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars, including names that represent Android, Qualcomm or Samsung for example. On 2019, Apple and Qualcomm officially ceased fighting after more than 2 years of litigation. Now, Apple and Qualcomm suddenly signed a cooperation contract. Qualcomm shares jumped 23%, the biggest gain in more than 19 years. Similar Samsung, Apple's main competitor in the high-end phone segment. ePhones also bring in large revenue in the panel segment for Samsung. GT Advanced went bankrupt when Apple decided not to use sapphire panels for the iPhone 6 in 2014. Or InvenSense had to sell itself in 2017 for less than half the value 3 years earlier, when Apple designed its own motion chip for the iPhone X. On the contrary, when news broke that Apple might switch to using LCD screens from Japan Display for the iPhone XR, its shares immediately increased by 12%. Or even in Viet Nam. ePhones are always very popular, but Mac sales are not much. So Apple requires dealers, if they want the latest iPhones, they must also carry Macs, iPods or. The power of hardware is great, but the power of software is no less. Apple's power to kill with the App Store makes many companies like Meta, Spotify or Epic miserable. After many years, the world has changed a lot. But iPhone is still the most popular phone. Today, images like this are all too familiar. Once you fall in love with the iPhone, love the iOS operating system, and are locked in the Apple ecosystem, it's not easy for you to switch to another operating system. So you will accept what Apple offers for a new iPhone, whether you like it or not. For example, they can take away your headphones and charger for environmental reasons. That is also the power Apple has over its users. People love iPhone for many reasons. Beautiful design, smooth operating system, easy to use, and especially because of high security. In 2016, the US federal court asked this company to help the FBI unlock iPhone phones used by a shooter in San Bernardino, California, USA in December 2015 that killed 14 people and injured 22 others. Apple has refused this request. Not just In fact, since Steve Jobs was alive, he has always especially promoted privacy for Apple users, and Jobs really tried to do that. So did Tim Cook's turn. But Tim Cook is much more flexible. Tim Cook once criticized social networks like Facebook and Twitter for trying to exploit users' personal data. Said and done. In April, Apple made privacy changes on the iOS operating system. Every time you open the application, the user will see a window appear and ask for opinions on whether to allow the application to track users for advertising purposes. They can easily refuse by clicking the Ask App Not to Track button. Previously, through tracking IDFA identifiers on applications in iOS, Facebook, Google or website, advertisers can know users' shopping habits and preferences, from which to launch appropriate advertising campaigns as well as measure the success of that advertising campaign. But now, with ATT, there will no longer be that spring. Very quickly after that, ATT caused Facebook and many other companies to lose billions of dollars. Advertising measurement firm AppsFlyer in October 2021 said that 86% of running iOS devices possess the ATT feature. Only 38% of users agreed to be tracked and 62% clicked the decline button. Rejecting the FBI or ATT feature has brought a lot of user confidence. But that's not the case everywhere. China, for example, in 2017, China enacted a cybersecurity law, requiring foreign companies to store Chinese users' data domestically. And to please China, Apple stored Chinese users' data at a data center in Guizhou province. Chinese government employees will control this center, including the key to open the data. Apple, if it wants to live well in China, must become a tool of government censorship. Apple, of course, has many reasons to fear China. First, the majority of Apple products are assembled in China. Just a small mistake will seriously affect this production chain and cause Apple to struggle. Second, the Chinese market is too big for Apple to be tough. It brings in 1 to 5 of Apple sales. Upheavals in China always make Apple tremble. For example, the ban on using iPhones in some state agencies blew away Apple's $200 billion in just 2 days. And yet, new regulations here can cause popular applications such as Facebook, WhatsApp, to disappear from the Chinese App Store. And if not careful, it can cause Apple to lose tens of billions of dollars from the App Store. And at the same time, they lose countless users to Xiaomi or Huawei. Apple is not afraid of the FBI, not afraid of Zuckerberg, but will have to fear China. It's not just Apple. It's the same with Tesla or Facebook. Zuckerberg still has to come here to exercise. And now Apple has to fear the EU too. The European Union's adoption of the Digital Markets Act to enhance competition and ensure users' right to choice will certainly limit Apple's power in the future. First of all, the iPhone 15 had to switch to using all Type-C ports instead of the exclusive Lightning port. And next it will probably be iMess or App Store's turn. Steve Jobs created Apple's power by launching the iPhone. As for Tim, the power is already in his hands. Just use it flexibly. And we must pray that America and China do not confront each other anymore.